Planet Vero Radio. I am Cindy Schwartz. We are broadcast on iHeartMedia. We are also podcast on Spreaker. This is the Patient Partners Show, and I've got my co-host Jeannie Roller on Skype with me from Indiana. Jeannie, we're here today. We're going to talk about what do patients do actually to maybe get some help when their medical care has gone wrong, or the patient feels that it's gone wrong, and is there an avenue to complain? And everybody always immediately jumps to, oh, well, it's going to be litigation, it's going to be a lawsuit, it's going to be malpractice or whatever. But that's not what we're always talking about. Sometimes it is, but that's not always the first defense of what the patient wants. They really kind of want to have it righted, and they want to hear that the things that they're saying are valid.
Right, and money can't fix some of the things that they do.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know why it's the first jump is automatically to the legal field.
Right. When my husband was harmed, all we wanted was for the ones who harmed him to be punished and for it not to happen again. That's what we wanted. We didn't want money.
Right. And when you say that to people, they always, to these people, the ones that we're talking about, the doctors and the medical staff that, for whatever reason, the harm happened, they look at you so cynically like, well, that's not true. They're just trying to get some information from us so they can really actually sue, which in my personal experience, that's what happened to me.
Right. Well, we were told we needed to talk to them. We need to talk to the legal department and figure out what kind of settlement we could get from them. That's not what we wanted. And when we refused to do it that way, then, they just threw down everything at us. But, talking about avenues of complaint, you can complain. I mean, you can talk to the hospitals, you can talk to the doctors, you can talk to the attorneys generals, the State Board of Health, Medicare, CMS, Health and Human Services. We've done it all. Mm-hmm. And basically all have not done anything. They said basically too bad for you. Mm-hmm. If they even answered at all.
Right. Well, that's the sad thing about it is, so there are so many people that you and I know between us. We also know from Lynn and John that have been on the show. We know from Mary that's been on the show. We've had other people on the show that it's happened to them. We're all in different states. We're not all in the same state. We know from our friend Misty Roberts that's on patientmodesty.org, she's been doing this 10, 12, 15 years, thousands, tens of thousands of people. I mean, are we all wrong about this?
Well, apparently we all lie because that's the way they spin it, that we're just liars. That's their common fallback, is we don't know what's going on. We're liars. That's it. Okay. Even when we complained to the government, we were told that what the patient says doesn't matter. If it's not in the medical records, it's not the truth. And even if it is in the medical records, if it's not flattering to the medical provider, then it's not true. So even the government had its double standards. It's only true as long as they want it to be true, and then it's not, and then that's just too bad for you.
Well, the other double-edged sword with that is they will argue that you aren't coherent or cohesive, or your mind isn't because you have so many powerful drugs in you, which it is true to a certain point that does happen. But yet, if you sign a consent paperwork at that same time, that's valid.
Right.
So how does that double-edged sword, we've asked that question so many times, in reality, how does that double-edged sword play out? It only plays out if you're the one that wants it to work for your benefit.
Right. It is all for their benefit. There is nothing that protects us as a patient. There is nothing. I mean, most of us who go through the complaint process, when we do get ready to file a malpractice suit, most of us will never get an attorney to represent us because they only take so many cases. They only like the easy cases. When we told them which hospital we were involved with, they said, we don't want that to go against that hospital because they're very aggressive. Even if we win, they will keep filing appeals. It will be a never-ending mess. And so if you go pro se, Well, they get you on a technicality because there's so many things that you don't know, filings that you're supposed to do, paperwork you're supposed to complete. There's just no way to win. And then there's depositions. Those
Mm-hmm.
are a nightmare. Like with us, they wanted our tax records for the past 15 years. They wanted everything. They wanted to know if we've ever filed bankruptcy, who we've ever been married to, our children, anyone that we've ever spoken to about this event. I mean, it was just invasive. It was like being raped all over again. And then if you do go further, then you're threatened with being sued for the cost of their lawyers' fees, of their time, of their effort, if you do go, because you probably will not win the case. And then they will use the little blackmail thing that they have. We'll just sue you then for cost. So
Right.
it's a scary, scary process.
It is a really scary process because at the end of the day, I mean, are mistakes made? Yes, they are made. We're taught, and we have no problem with that, but we know that people are human, doctors are human. There are intentional things that happen, though, and patients aren't signing for that when they sign an informed consent. And these are things that are known beforehand that, I mean, in my opinion, the patient should have all that information to be able to make a completely informed decision, i.e., what kind of drugs are going to be used. I mean, I know that they do ask some of that stuff, but they don't tell you all of that. Is the patient going to be shaved in so many different weird places, from the actual place of the surgery? Is the patient going to be kept completely naked from the get-go? I mean, that doesn't even make any sense when you know that it gives even more of an instance to go into hypothermia. So you know that you're going to do this, doctors and facilities. I mean, you know this out front, and you need to tell the patients that. I don't see how that's not criminal. And the other thing is the avenue that they give us, which we've mentioned before, different surveys, different, the hospitals will send a survey, the doctors will send a survey, there's national surveys or whatever. And my own personal experience, when I did fill out those surveys, I found, especially at the facility that I did go to, is those comments were buried. And you can see the timestamps of the other comments that are on there. So I honestly don't think feasibly that 15 people went on, just for argument's sake, June 3rd, 2019, and filled out 15 surveys about this specific surgeon.
No.
I mean, that's just not even reasonable. I mean, it seems like it's almost the deck is stacked. So how do we know these avenues are valid?
Well, the one really famous, I guess for lack of a better word, survey, it asks mostly, did you like the meals? Was the food hot? Was the food service good?
Mm-hmm.
That's not what we need to talk about.
Right.
We need to talk about, were we treated with dignity? Were we treated with respect? When we said no, did they respect our saying no?
Right.
And Cindy, both you and my husband both said no,
right.
And both of you were medically assaulted.
Right. Well, in my case, they just shot me full of more drugs. They ripped up my informed consent, had me sign another one when I was drugged to my mind. I didn't have a clue what the paper said. Yeah. And then they wrote on my medical records, patient changed mind, with a giant black X across all the papers that I had signed. So, I mean, that I've got it all if anybody ever wants to see it. It's fact. I mean, I'm not making it up. In fact, I was shocked when I saw it. So,
yeah, well, and my husband he said no, so they just quietly did nothing. They isolated him from me, they drugged him, and then they did it.
Right.
No consent needed.
Right, no consent needed. So our question then, to anybody, to the listeners, to the lawyers, to the doctors, and kudos to the doctors that are fabulous, because there are so many of them, and I've certainly found them. What do we do as the patients? Yeah, we want to forget about this, and we only have like 15 seconds left. But sometimes you can't because it's PTSD, and sometimes we just don't want it to happen to someone else because we see that doctor still in practice.
Right. I don't see how, when you're intentionally harmed, that you can forget it.
No, yeah. And I don't understand how people do that anyway. I mean, I just don't get it. Anyway, Jeannie, another great conversation, and you've been listening to Planet Vero Radio. Please stay tuned.